Hello everyone. Today we are going to talk about the reason why your speakers keep blowing. If we haven't met before, my name is Percy, and in the past 16 years I've been doing sound. I've noticed that people blow speakers, and if you have an opportunity to talk to them and ask them what happened, the answer that comes up most of the time is, we're not too sure, or I don't know. So that means something that happened was something they were not prepared for. Therefore, they could not avoid the reason why the speakers get blown. So today I'm going to go over most of the issues that cause your speakers to be blown. Number one is not having enough speaker power for the function or the audience that you are covering. You discover that sometimes you take a job or you take a function that is too big for the PA system that you have, which means your PA system does not have a headroom to give you an output that is desired. So when the function is running and the audience keep demanding for more, or the performers or the artist or somebody who is speaking insists that you increase the volume so that they can be audible across the audience, you end up having to push the system beyond its capacity. That lack of headroom, that lack of power capacity in the PA system may end up leading you to blow the system. So it is very important that you understand the size of your system, its limitations, and also the type of product material going to the audience that is going to be used with the system. For example, if a system can do a speech of maybe 100 people, it doesn't necessarily mean that for a rock concert or a reggae concert you are going to use that same PA system even for the same number of people. And even when other systems can cover well in an indoor event, they might struggle to cover an outdoor event, mainly because if you are indoor, you have reflections. The auditorium or the venue that you'll be using can give you some reflections, and that will preserve some of the energy from your PA system. So if you then go outside, you discover that there is no reflections for your sound. So whatever energy goes out, it goes. So you need to have a bigger system outdoor as compared to what you would need indoor, mainly because of that reflection factor. And sometimes maybe outside you could be exposed to other noises. Those noises will then affect your output, and you will have to beat the output. Your output has to beat the noises that are coming. And also the behavior of your audience is something that you should consider when you're going with your system, because if your audience is a very active audience, they are cheering, they are shouting, they are screaming, your PA system also has to go above that. So if a PA system was performing well for 100 people, for example, on a passive audience, when you then go to an audience that is very active, you discover that your system will not give you enough power, or your sound is not going to be enough. Number two, mismatching the amplifiers and speakers. I've noticed the common problem where sometimes you buy speakers from a different supplier and you buy an amplifier from a different supplier, and those things are not matched. Sometimes the amplifier is too big and sometimes the amplifier is too small. That mismatch can cause a damage to your speakers, because if the amplifier is too big, it will overpower the speakers. If the amplifier is too small and you sort of know that these speakers can be this loud, you end up overdriving that amplifier and it starts giving you not so clean signal, and that will be a danger to your speakers. Number three, it has to do with wrong crossover points. There are speakers that are designed to produce mid-high frequencies. For example, if it's a box with suppose a 15-inch speaker and a compression driver, that's commonly designed to produce mid-high frequencies. And there are other speakers that are designed for subwoofers. So if you don't have a crossover, for example, all the speakers will end up playing full range. That is bass, mids, highs, all in one cabinet. And the mid-high speakers may not be designed to produce that kind of bass. So if you want to hear low frequencies at a louder volume, sometimes people end up pushing the low frequencies on the mixer, but then the speaker that you are using is not designed to give you low frequency. So that improper setup will end up causing damages to the mid-high speaker, because it's not supposed to produce that kind of bass. And same thing with your subwoofers. If your subwoofers are designed to produce only low frequencies and you're giving them a full range, they end up struggling to play mid frequencies and high frequencies, and you are wasting a lot of energy from the speaker doing frequencies that it is not supposed to do. So make sure that the speaker you are using is getting the frequencies that it is designed to produce. So you need to have crossovers, digital speaker management system. Sometimes get a preset done by the manufacturer of the speaker, or the engineers or the dealers or that would have managed to give you the system. Basically, the system designer should give you the guidelines of the frequencies that you are supposed to expect from the system. Number 4 issue has to do with clipping. Whenever you see a red light, it signifies danger. Even if you are driving in traffic, you see that the green light means go. The amber light means exercise with caution. You need to exercise caution. Things may not be as safe as you think. Then the red light definitely means danger. It's a stop. Don't do anything. So same applies with the your PA system. You discover that your mixer shows you an LED meter of its main output that shows you green, amber, and red. Green is where you are supposed to be. Work in green. When you start pushing your volumes above green and it starts going into amber, exercise caution. Something bad might happen. And when it goes into red, if you then survive that, that's a surprise, because then you're pushing distortion. You're overdriving the signal. Those LED lights are given to you for a reason, so that at least you see. Typically, what you also see on a rev counter of a motor vehicle is just an example. If you then drive your car and the rev counter is in red all the time, the engine might knock. The very same thing will happen also to your PA system. If you keep driving the system and it's showing you red on the mixer, red on the amplifier, or on the processors that are involved, it means you are overdriving the system. So make sure that you are not seeing red on the displays, on the LEDs of your equipment. If you are not, if you feel that your system is not covering well, and unless you are in red, you just have to double check if everything is meshed. That's number 1. Number 2, it might mean your system is not big enough for what you're doing, so you probably need to double it or change something about the setup. So make sure things are not clipping. Red lights is a no-no. They signify danger. Number 5, I've noticed that there are times where people do excessive EQ. So number 5 is excessive EQ, where all the knobs are turned right up to the max, high frequency, mid frequency, just excessive EQ. That can also cause a danger, because increasing those EQs is also increasing gain. You discover that sometimes if you put too much EQs, things start clipping, and some of the things don't even sound as good. If the system is sounding okay while it's on flat, and you just push everything in terms of EQ, it might start to sound a bit artificial. So that's also one of the other things I've noticed with low frequencies and high frequencies. If people cannot hear enough lows, they do excessive EQ, but you need to refer to your subwoofers, check if your amplifiers are okay, and make sure that you're not doing excessive EQs. Your EQ, your equalization for the channel or for the instrument or even for playback music, you should essentially start from flat. Try to cut more than boost, so that your mix is sounding light and your sound is sounding closer to the natural color of the system that you'll be using at that particular time. So excessive EQ is something that you should do, but with caution, and know exactly what you're doing, because it's a big problem. Number 6 issue I've noticed is feedback. That is when you hear your microphones going wee, squee, all those. Normally feedback is generated from microphones, when microphones pick up the sound that they have produced from the speakers. So your mic placement is going to be very important. You have to consider that. Your mic choice has to be very important. You have to consider that, because excessive feedback will damage your speakers, because that is volume that just goes up without control. It goes way high sometimes, and you're busy trying to pay attention to other things, but the gains that are coming from that is just too high, and it gets to blow your speakers without you paying much attention to it, and you're busy firefighting the feedback. Number 7 that I've noticed is some people will come and say these speakers are blown, and you discover that these speakers have been damaged already. So you discover that keeping on using damaged speakers, for example, your high frequency driver is dead. For example, your high frequency driver is dead, and you're left with the 15-inch cabinet with the subs, and you're continuing to use speakers in that manner. There's no more high frequency driver, so you're not going to get that clarity from the high frequency. But people still use speakers like that, and they keep on trying to achieve that bright sound when the compression drivers are gone. So that's a problem. If you're using damaged speakers, make sure that they are repaired. They are in a good working order. You're not going to expect to get high frequencies when the high frequency driver is not working. You're not expecting to get mid frequencies when the mid frequency driver is not working. Same thing with the low frequencies. You're not going to expect to hear a lot of low frequencies if the subwoofer is dead or if the subwoofer is not there anymore, right? So make sure that you are not using damaged speakers. That also goes for recoiled speakers. You know, I've discovered that some speakers, when they are recoiled, they don't come back to maybe 100% of what they were. So if you have speakers that have been recoiled, you need to know that they are not going to be working maybe back to 100%. So maybe 80%, something like that. So you need to know that, and don't expect too much from speakers like that. So you discover that most of the time people get to damage speakers further because they've been damaged already. So they get to damage them further. That's one of the other reasons why speakers blow. Then I've seen another scenario where the dust cap for the woofer falls, and that also exposes the voice coil to dust. Some of the dust might carry magnetic particles and that, but the voice coil doesn't really want to work with dust. That's why there was a dust cap in the first place. So you see speakers without a dust cap, and people keep using them. Those speakers are already partially damaged. Some speakers may be exposed to moisture, or they were rained on. You know, there could have been some rain and the speakers will be wet, and they keep using the woofers before the corn paper has dried or something. Then the corn paper tears, it just doesn't look good, and they still expect to get good sound from those kind of speakers. It's not possible. You are going to damage the speakers, and it's very important that you pay attention to that and fix that issue. Then another issue on number 8 is cabling. Short circuit on cables can cause speaker damages. They might also even cause amplifier damages. They'll cause a lot of damages. The channels that are working on the mix and stuff. So make sure that your cables are not buzzing. You're not getting these unnecessary buzzes from your cables while you're running your system. So it's very important that you get good quality cables. Use the microphone cable for mics. Use the guitar cable, instrument cable for guitars and keyboards. I've seen a situation where people were even using a speaker cable just because it had quarter-inch jack connectors on a keyboard, and the resistance from that cable, it just doesn't match, and it wasn't even sounding nice. It was heavily distorted. So then all those factors, if buzzing cables where you touch this cable and it gives you sound, and you leave it, then it goes away, then you touch it again and you just go brr, 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 brr. All those buzzes, they might end up damaging your speakers. A bonus point is when you're carrying your speakers, try by all means to make sure that they're not facing the wind, because when they're facing the wind, the cone can be pushed back in because of the wind when you're driving, right? Let's say the speakers are in a truck. Since the speaker works like this, positive, negative, so that push can also push the speaker too much into its negative playing position, and the cone can be damaged. So at least try by all means, if the truck is going this direction, the speakers are facing this way. Kind of helps so that you don't damage the speakers. And I think because of that, you discover that even majority of the high-end speaker manufacturers, they struggle to give people guarantee on speaker drivers per se. You can get guarantee on a system, yes, but they struggle to give you guarantee on a speaker driver, the woofer itself, because there are so many things that can happen that will cause damages on a woofer. So yes, they can give you guarantee, but until at least they prove that the problem is not because of their components. And you also make sure that you have studied and taken note of some of the factors that I've talked about. These are not all, but these are some of the common issues that I've noticed in my line of work that have caused some speakers to be blown. And I'm hoping that you will keep your speakers safe and you will enjoy your sound when things open up and you are back on the field with your PA system. Thank you so much for your time. If you have enjoyed this video, like, put a comment, share, so that a lot of other people who might have these challenges might benefit from it. Thank you so much for your time.